Now that's passion. That, the aliveness, the fire in the belly that Ernest Holmes would talk about. You know, if anyone saw the little video that Thor made me send out, talking about, you know, that feeling, and you're like, ooh, oh my God, I feel it. Like, is it the burrito? Or no, it's that fire. Feeling that fire, feeling that passion, feeling that thing within me, which is what Carol so beautifully exemplified and helped ignite for me and with me. But that's the secret, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, is when we feel the fire, we know it. When it's sizzling, it's easy to connect with it until it fizzles out. Anyone ever have some great passions, whether it's a relationship or a creative project, a vision, a dream, and it's so alive, so energetic, there's no denying it, and then suddenly, where'd it go? I'd like to think, by the expression of several people in the room, I'm not the only one that's experienced that. But what I am interested in doing is becoming more clear, remember who I am, and realize that that passion isn't outside of me, it's something within me. So how can I relight, how can I reignite that flame? How can I cultivate and tend the fire? So I'm actually going to have, Thor, if you could play this next video. So I'm just going to talk as it plays. I go to men's retreats several times a year, and this was in Maine. And there were about 20 men coming together. And at the beginning of the fire, Elliot was teaching us how to start fire. From nothing. He had a stick and he had a little bow, and he created friction. With a lot of effort, some patience, some faith in believing in the process, he was able to start with nothing, with the friction, through the things of life, to get an initial little spark, the spark of creation. And then he had to tend it. He had to take care of it like a brand new baby in the world. He had to stoke the fire. And he had to tend to it. He had to love it. And eventually he started the fire. And then it was our job for the next 3.5 days to keep the fire alive. As big thunderstorms rolled in through the entire weekend. That was our commitment. We would keep this fire alive, not just during the day, but 24/7 until we left the retreat. And we did. You know, and it took mindfulness. It took some skill. It took some remembrance of what wood do I feed it at this point? And then at what point can I just let it burn? You know, and when the first big storm blew in, suddenly one of the guys like, oh my God, our fire. And went out there, and I mean, it was just pouring down rain. But he went down to the smallest little ember that was remaining, and he took that ember and brought it in to a different place and cared for the ember. And then when the rainstorm had stopped in the morning, we took it back out and started the process. But the ember, the flame, the remembrance, the ember was already present. It just needed to be cultivated and curated. So fire represents renewal. It represents purification, transformation, passion, creativity, spiritual awakening, and like I said, passion. But how do we use this fire? How do we use this passion that burns within us? It can serve us really well, just like fire. Fire can warm things. We can cook things. It can provide light if we're in right relationship to it. Or it can burn out of control. It can be destructive, like a wildfire, as many of us remember several years ago. So we're talking about the fire in the belly, not an external thing, but that passion, that motivation, that determination that's within each of us. So the term fire in the belly, even that goes back as an old idiom. Back in the ancient times, fire in the belly, there was the mythology, the myth of Prometheus, who went and stole fire from Zeus. Was it Zeus or Apollo? From Zeus, and then he gave it to the humans. So that was the origins of the fire in the belly. It was from Prometheus. And then if you go back to like the medieval period of time with knights in armor, they referred to the fire in the belly because they would drink alcohol. They'd drink nasty spirits before they went out to wage war because it gave them courage, made them feel strong and dominant, gave them the passion to move into the battle. And then as we were talking in the modern reference, fire in the belly, politicians, athletes, artists, that intense drive and passion. So fire in the belly. We saw Eliot create fire and tend to it. How do we tend to the fire internally? If fire represents transformation, there's that part of me like, so what in me needs to be transformed? And again, I don't like the word need. What within me is ready to be transformed, that wants to be known? And how do I do it? There's Aesop wrote, "It is with our passions as it is with fire and water. They are good servants, but bad masters. It is with our passions as it is with fire and water. They are good servants and bad masters." I think that goes back to, are they working with us, for us, or are they in control of us? Going back to fire. If it's out of control, if it's out of fire or out of control and it's going to burn everything down, then that's when it's the master. But when it's the servant, we're working with it, when we're bringing in the reason with the passion and find the harmony between the two, it actually serves us really well. So passion can be as a motivator. It can pursue our goals with enthusiasm, determination. They also say about harnessing our emotions, like how passion can be channeled into positive actions. When it's constructively used. Or, as I said, it could be destructive. So the balance, it's all about finding the balance. Going back to science of mind, reason and the spirit and the passion with us. What's the balance between the two? One of the paragraphs I left out of the Khalil Gibran quote is this: "I would have you consider your judgment and your appetite, even as you would two loved guests in your house." Judgment and your appetite, the passion, as two loved guests in your house. Surely you would not honor one guest above the other. For he who is more mindful of one loses love and the faith of both. So there is an important value in terms of finding that balance between what are the things that creatively I want to express, that the thing that I'm feeling, and allowing it to be expressed, allowing it to be known, but still keeping it in harmony with what needs to be done, the logical sense of living in this day-to-day life. There are times when I just don't feel inspired. And then there are other times where I feel just on fire. And there's a space where that's okay for both. I talk a lot about the law of polarity, of it's not one thing or it's not another. Agony or ecstasy, two sides of a beach ball. How's the balance for me living between the two? Can I be with the times when it feels torturous, when life feels challenging, and to be okay with it, to love that, to forgive myself for feeling the agony and the strife and only seeing the struggle? Can I be compassionate to myself to realize that this is part of the perfect unfoldment of my life? And can I remember that I have the control to shift my perspective closer to the other side and really live a life of passion? So as I said, in Maine, we kept the fire alive. But it took some tending. We had to feed it. We had to nurture it. We had to be willing to allow things to be burned off that are no longer serving. Are you able to feed your internal fire? And most importantly, can you remember the ember? That spark of creation that resides within each and every one of us at all times. It's always there. So how do we get to it? We find stillness. I find stillness. I can go to nature as Karen goes out to nature. I can listen to music. I can meditate. What are the different practices that I can incorporate to get me to the place where I can remember who I am? When I can remember that ember, that spark of creation, the divinity of the universe residing within me. That's my light, that's my fire, and that's the light and fire for each and every one of you. Namaste.